Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 15-minute narration. Estimated reading time, 15 minutes. Style, classic. Continuous fairy tale narration. No direct character dialogue. Once upon a time, in the heart of winter, when snowflakes fell like feathers from the sky, a good queen sat by a window framed with black ebony. As she stitched, she pricked her finger, and 3 drops of blood fell upon the snow. Gazing at the contrast of the red blood, the white snow, and the black wood, she wished for a child with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Soon after, her wish was granted, and she bore a little girl named Snow White. Sadly, the good queen passed away shortly after the child's birth. The king, in time, took a new wife. This queen was beautiful, but her heart was cold, filled with vanity and jealousy. She possessed a magical mirror, and her only joy was standing before it, demanding affirmation. Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? The mirror always replied, "My queen, you are the fairest of all." This answer pleased her immensely, for she knew the mirror spoke only the truth. As the years passed, Snow White grew into a maiden of extraordinary beauty. On the day she turned 7, her beauty had blossomed beyond compare. When the jealous queen addressed her mirror once more, the answer shattered her peace. The mirror declared, "My queen, you are beautiful, it is true, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." Rage and envy boiled in the queen's heart. From that hour forward, she hated Snow White with a deep, murderous passion. She summoned her loyal huntsman and commanded him to take Snow White deep into the forest. He was to kill her and return with her heart as proof of his deed. The huntsman, though horrified by the order, obeyed. He led the innocent girl into the thickest part of the woods. Snow White, sensing the danger, pleaded for her life with tears in her eyes. The huntsman, a good man at heart, was moved by her distress. He realized he could not harm the gentle maiden. Instead of taking her life, he set her free. He warned her to run far away and never return, for the queen would surely find her otherwise. To deceive the cruel queen, the huntsman killed a young boar and took its heart back to the castle, presenting it as Snow White's. The wicked queen consumed it, believing she was finally the fairest once more. Meanwhile, poor Snow White ran through the dark, strange forest. She was terrified of the wild beasts and the shadows. She ran over stones and thorns until nightfall, falling into a deep slumber under a hollow tree. When morning broke, Snow White continued her desperate search for safety. She soon discovered a tiny cottage, unlike any she had ever seen. It was neat and cozy, but everything inside was miniature. A small table was set with 7 tiny plates, 7 little goblets, and 7 small beds lined up against the wall. Overcome by exhaustion and hunger, Snow White ate a little from each plate and drank a drop from each goblet. Then, finding one of the small beds slightly more comfortable than the others, she lay down and fell fast asleep. As night descended, the owners of the cottage returned. They were the 7 dwarfs, who spent their days mining for gold deep within the mountains. They noticed immediately that someone had been in their home. They huddled around the tiny bed where Snow White lay, marveling at her beauty. When Snow White finally awoke, the dwarfs questioned her. She explained her sad story, the wicked stepmother and the huntsman. The 7 dwarfs, touched by her innocence and plight, offered her refuge. They told her she could stay and live with them if she would cook, clean, and keep their little house tidy. Snow White happily agreed. The dwarves laid down one strict rule. She must never, ever let anyone into the house while they were away. For a time, Snow White lived a happy, secluded life with her 7 tiny protectors. But the jealous queen, believing herself supreme, consulted her mirror again one day. To her horror, the mirror replied, "Over the mountains, where the 7 dwarves dwell, Snow White is still alive and still the fairest in the land." The queen realized she had been tricked. Her fury knew no bounds. Disguising herself as an old peddler woman, she journeyed to the dwarf's cottage. She knocked on the door, and Snow White, forgetting the dwarf's warning, peeked out. The queen offered her beautiful lace stays, or bodice laces. Snow White allowed the old woman to lace her up, but the queen pulled the laces so tight that Snow White could not breathe and fell down as if dead. When the dwarfs returned, they found her pale and motionless. Quickly they cut the restrictive laces, and Snow White miraculously gasped and revived. They scolded her severely and cautioned her again. The queen, learning of her failure, tried again. This time, disguised as a different old woman, she offered Snow White a poisoned comb. Snow White tried the comb, and immediately the poison took effect, causing her to collapse. The dwarfs returned just in time, recognized the trick, and removed the comb, saving her life once more. Finally, the queen devised her most wicked plan. She created a beautiful, shining red apple, poisoned on only one side. Disguised as a farmer's wife, she approached Snow White. Snow White initially refused, but the queen cut the apple in half, eating the clean side herself to prove it was safe, then offering the poisoned half to Snow White. Snow White took a bite, and immediately she fell into a deep, death-like slumber. This time, when the dwarfs returned, they could find no immediate cure. They tried everything, but Snow White remained still. Her cheeks still red, her skin still white, as if she were merely sleeping. Heartbroken, they placed her body in a coffin of clear glass so they could admire her beauty forever. They carried the coffin with them everywhere, mourning their beloved friend. Years later, a handsome prince riding through the woods discovered the beautiful maiden in the glass coffin. He was struck by her beauty and begged the dwarfs to let him take the coffin. Out of compassion, they consented. As the prince's servants carried the glass coffin, they stumbled over a tree root. The sudden jolt dislodged the piece of poisoned apple from Snow White's throat. She opened her eyes, revived, and stood up, utterly healthy and whole. The prince was overjoyed. He confessed his love for her, and Snow White, recognizing the goodness in his heart, accepted his proposal. They journeyed to his kingdom, where they were married in a grand, magnificent ceremony and lived happily ever after.